Today, I want to talk nervous system regulation, but more specifically, what stops nervous system regulation or blocks it, right? So, if you're someone who's maybe tried breath work and instead of making you feel more calm, it made you feel more anxious, right? You sit down to meditate and you feel more stressed than you've ever been, right? If you have kind of started to dive into this world of nervous system regulation, but it hasn't worked, this is probably why, right? What I want to talk about in this video is the role that breathing plays, right? In this kind of gateway to regulation. We're going to talk about the three levels. Number one is the kind of mechanical, number two is the neurological, right? The nervous system. And number three is the kind of experiential. And so I kind of want to take you inside my thinking here and the practical application that I use with clients that I see and that I teach practitioners inside our training program, right? So the first kind of law that we have to agree on here is that biology is adaptive. Right? What I mean by that is we adapt to our environment. Right? This is just a rule of our biology. You go to the gym and you lift weights, guess what? You get stronger. That is an adaptation. You sit on the couch every day, you'll get more deconditioned. That is also an adaptation, right? So we are always adapting to our environment. One of the first places that we see that adaptation is the way that we breathe. And so this first kind of like level here is the mechanical. First, I want everyone just to consider for a moment. Today in the 21st century, we have very different demands on our body. We are sitting 6, 8, 10 hours a day. We are spending 2, 4, 6 hours a day on our phone, right? Some people, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they are either on their phone or they're on a laptop. There is an impact of that on our posture, right? On our biomechanics, right? Being on a phone or being at a desk, it kind of changes the orientation of the rib cage, the pelvis, the shoulder girdle, the muscles of the neck, the diaphragm, right? So being in these positions largely influences the way that we breathe. Right? If the diaphragm isn't moving and we aren't able to modulate kind of pressure in our belly, in our chest, like this is what gives us access to the nervous system. When people talk about how breath work works, something they often fail to recognize is its impact on the nervous system is through largely how the diaphragm interacts with all these other systems. But if I've been sat at a desk for the last 10 years and I'm spending X amount of hours a day on my phone in this rounded forward head, it's like my diaphragm ain't moving. My diaphragm has been deconditioned and it's kind of stuck, and I've started to recruit the muscles of my neck and my chest, and I start to breathe up here, right? So we see this adaptation of breathing as a response to the environment. But the second place that shows up is how stress impacts our breathing. Right? You cannot separate stress and breathing, right? Stress, literally, like breath changes in response to stress, right? Why? To prepare to deal with it. Do I need to run away? Do I need to fight back, right? So the stress that we're under today is very different, right? The constant notifications, the dings, the buzzes, right? The keeping up, the striving, the productivity culture, the hustle, the go, 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 right? Like the connectivity that I can pick up my phone and be connected to 7 billion people and their stories and the bad news and what's going on in the world. Like this is new. This level of stimulation, this level of stress is very new. And it has an impact on the way that I breathe. Largely, right? I start to breathe faster, shallower, higher in my body. So we're starting to conceive, right? This first level, the mechanical, that my breath is largely changed, like it's influenced by the environment. And that is kind of like leading me towards this breathing dysfunction, that we're now breathing up into the chest using the accessory muscles. We're breathing short, we're breathing shallow, we're breathing fast. That now level two, the neurological, right? So we go from this mechanical, what does breathing high in my chest, faster, shallower, do to my nervous system? Well, it tells my nervous system that something might be about to happen, right? It tells my nervous system to stay on guard, to stay protective, defensive, vigilant, right? We're talking about the sympathetic nervous system here, right? So the nervous system with these kind of two opposing sides, right? The sympathetic, the action, the survival, right? The doing, the parasympathetic being the recovery, right? The safety, the replenishment. If we begin to breathe high in the chest, faster, shallower, it starts to lean us over towards that sympathetic end of the spectrum, right? breathing's not creating a full-blown fight or flight response, but done 23,000 times a day, shallow, high, erratic, right, held, that's going to start to shift my baseline, right? The baseline that my nervous system operates from. And let me tell you, the nervous system literally shapes our perception of the world. There's a saying, I don't remember who it is, but the world is not as it is as we are, right? I would take that one step further and say the world is not as it is as our nervous system is, right? When I'm stressed or fearful or excited or grateful or connected and present, right? These states that we can embody largely determine how I see the world, right? So living in this sympathetic state changes my experience of the world, not just through the physiological lens that my sleep is poorer, right? My heart rate's higher, my energy management is off, but also through this more like subjective experience of the world and how I see the world. So this second layer of breath, right, is this like wiring, right, of what is my nervous system predicting about the world based on what it's experienced. If we don't unlock level one, the mechanics of the breath, we're stuck here at this nervous system level, right? Because my nervous system is shaped by the way that I breathe. It's hard to get out of that sympathetic channel if the mechanics of my breathing is still telling my nervous system, be ready, right? I'm breathing fast, 20 times a minute, shallow. It's like my nervous system that has been wired over millions of years is like, hey, fast breathing usually means we need to be ready to go. Something's happening, right? And so it keeps the nervous system locked on this channel. This third layer then is the kind of experiential, right? So many people who begin this work into, oh, I'm going to learn how to down regulate. I'm going to learn how to calm my system. I'm too stressed, right? We've kind of identified a problem and someone says, yeah, go and do this breathing exercise. And 30 seconds into it, they've never felt more anxious, right? They've never felt more guilty of, wait, who am I to take rest? And there's other things I could be doing. This isn't going to work. Bang, back to, right? This experiential aspect is because the nervous system loves familiarity. It loves predictability, right? It loves what it knows. And so when someone has been in this sympathetic state for months, years, decades, and we start to steer the ship in a different direction, right, towards this parasympathetic, calm, present, the nervous system, who's lived all its life in this kind of sympathetic lane, is like, whoa, 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 what is that over there? We don't know. Like the uncertainty, the nervous system will then create this like, hey, well, we should probably go clean the oven, right? Like, I haven't swept the floor. It's like my to-do list just rears its head and there's all this stuff and it's like, oh, yeah. Away I go. That is literally the nervous system just kind of pulling us back to what it knows. It's like, hey, I'm used to a constant low level of anxiety, go, 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 hustle, always on, right? Like I've been living there for a while. And this veering off course, the nervous system's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's kind of like go back to this. This is predictable. This is familiar. It's how my nervous system kind of keeps itself regulated, right? It's like, I'm going to keep doing what I know. And so when people try breath work, it's like they're entering into this third level. Oh, I'm going to extend my exhales. And lo and behold, they don't enjoy relaxation. It feels foreign. It feels threatening. It can spike their arousal, right? It's like, oh, when I do that, when I become aware of my breath or I slow down, I become more anxious. And then they go, oh, well, it must be that, I'm doing the wrong breath work or I'm not doing it right. And we haven't really understood these levels, right? That number one, my mechanics, right? The way that I breathe is largely shaped by my environment. The sitting, the phone use, the pain, the stress, right? Creates my breathing shapes, right? That level two is that breathing shapes my nervous system baseline, right? And so many people today are kind of stuck on this sympathetic end of the spectrum because they're breathing up in their chest, shallow and fast, because they've been sitting at a desk for 10 years, or they spend 4 hours a day on their phone, or they've hurt their back a couple of times and their breathing patterns shifted, right? This third layer then is that nervous system state that we get used to, right? The nervous system wants to keep doing what it's doing. And so when I try and relax, when I try and down regulate, when I try and slow down, I'm met with this resistance and this reinforcement that I go back to my type A, go, go, hustle, always something to do. Recovery actually feels threatening to a nervous system that's lived almost constantly in a state of action. And so this process of first unlocking the mechanics, right, changing how the diaphragm moves, the rib cage, right? The expansion that we can create, the shifts in posture, then unlocks a different part of the nervous system. It's like, oh, now we can start actually sending these clear messages and shift the baseline, right? So my nervous system moves from this kind of constant sympathetic activation. It starts to like slide down this scale where we have a different spectrum of emotional states, right? Of mental states. And then this third layer being, we can now start to move across that spectrum without the nervous system going, let's go back to what we know, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, right? We are able to kind of approach that and introduce calm gradually so it's not rejected by a nervous system that's still locked in that same state. So these kind of layers, right? If you're entering into, I'm trying to use my breath to calm down, yet you haven't changed the baseline of the nervous system because you haven't unlocked the breathing patterns that are adapted to our environment, that's why it doesn't feel effective, right? So don't kind of like, oh, breath work doesn't work for me if we haven't actually started at this base level, which is like, how's your breathing been shaped by your environment? The time you hurt your back, the 2 kids you've had, the 5 years you've sat at a desk, right? Whatever it might be, my breath adapts to that environment. And so the final piece I kind of want to share here is this idea that perhaps breathing isn't broken, it's adapted, right? And that's exactly the process that allows us to kind of correct it back to a more healthy, flexible baseline, right? If this kind of speaks to you, like this is just part of the kind of process that we work through in our training program, right? This breath-based, nervous system-focused approach, right? If that resonates, there'll be information under this video where you can go to kind of learn more. But I just want to kind of leave you with this idea, right? That my breathing is adaptive, as is the rest of my biology. The environment that we live in today in the 21st century is very different from the past because of technology, right? Because of sedentary lifestyles and sitting in chairs and using phones and hyperconnectivity and chronic stress and all these things, right, has shaped my breathing. My breathing has then shaped my nervous system, and my nervous system largely determines my experience of the world, right? And that baseline is what we're trying to change with these kind of intentional practices of regulation, right? But unless we've started to shift that system's baseline, calm is going to feel scary. Relaxed is going to feel threatening, right? Slowing down is going to feel like a threat. It's uncomfortable because my nervous system just wants to go back to what it knows. We haven't restored that kind of flexibility. Consider the breath, right, as this piece of nervous system regulation. It's a necessary piece that a lot of people are overlooking. And that's often why a lot of these practices don't stick and don't work effectively.